Hey everybody, welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. This is project part 70. It's actually the beginning of a new project that I'm going to be working on. But prior to doing that, I'm going to show you guys the result. For those of you who are tuning in, who've been watching, this is the final piece. I found a lot of time during the weekend, and I put in the hours. I really wanted to see it finished, and I'm really happy with it. Actually, it's one of those things that happens very frequently, which is at the beginning not knowing where it's going to end up at the end, whether it's going to be as good as I see it visually in my head. So there's like a lot of doubt that comes into play, but as I go through it, the more I develop it, the more it starts to take shape of how I actually pictured it in my head. So I'm pretty happy with it. And I did some work on the glasses as well. I actually changed some things around, gave them that glow actually, and I think that really brought out the image as well. So anyways, this is it, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Today I am going to start something new. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with it. I'm probably going to work on it for some time, and then I'm going to switch over to doing more work from my imagination. But this is what I'm going to be working on. This is a painting done by Jacques-Louis David. He is a French painter, and it's a painting of Socrates. He's in the middle, and this is right before this famous scene of him drinking hemlock. And how that came about was he was well known for the Socratic method, which is basically questioning everything and always trying to arrive at the truth through the process of questioning things. And at the time, this is like ancient Greece, I want to say ancient Greek. Anyways, back in the day, he was walking around. He was questioning pretty much everybody, people of authority, people who deemed themselves to be above everybody else, so on and so forth. And what they ended up finding out is that they didn't really know as much as they thought they did, and that really angered them. And of course, they took it out on Socrates because he had them arrive at that reality, at that truth. But Socrates was very adamant about that approach. He was very adamant about the idea that you always have to question, and you should have the freedom to question things, as it is the very nature of arriving at the truth. So at the time, he was disturbing a lot of politicians, of course. Again, this really goes back to that. And they didn't like it. And, the fascism really that started to surface once again, telling him that he has to cut it out, that he has to stop questioning things, he has to stop questioning people's knowledge and authority on things. And he's causing a lot of problems because he's also awakening a lot of people who weren't questioning things before, and that's causing problems for them. They can't exploit these people as much because people are starting to wake up to truths that obviously a lot of these rich bags didn't really want to didn't want people to arrive to. So they gave him an option. They said either you quit it, either you stop questioning things, or we are going to basically throw you in jail, or we're gonna off you. And they gave him options, and Socrates says, well, if I'm going to live in a reality that I'm not allowed to question, it's a reality I don't want to live in. And he chose to drink hemlock as a way of being sentenced to death. And in this scene, you could see a lot of the people that followed him, Plato being one of them, which you could see him all the way on the left side sitting there contemplating the nature of this scenario, and a lot of other people who followed him who really respected his understanding and knowledge are surrounded by him, and in his very last moment before hemlock is being given to him for him to drink. And even in that moment, you could see that he is still in a state of questioning and trying to arrive at truth with a gesture of him pointing upwards. The idea of rise above, become smarter, or pointing at the truth, which I think at a lot of times people refer to it as heavenly knowledge. So that's kind of like what the pointing upwards kind of indicates, I'm going to say. But it's an awesome painting. It's beautiful. The being able to actually see it, and I had the opportunity to actually see it in a museum up close. Huge painting, amazing work. I mean, it's just such skill in rendering things, such skill, like looking at the guy's legs, the guy who's handing him the hemlock. You could just see how delicate of a process it was. Like, he got all the colors down, he has the muscles down. It's incredible. I'm gonna say incredible rendering, incredible painting skills, incredible color choices. Just like the color of the skin is so great on Socrates, on the guy who's handing him the hemlock, even on Plato. And you guys are going to see that when as I zoom in. Really, it's a pretty high detailed image. So just the face expression there, and the detail on the beard as well is really incredible. The hair, the locks on their hair, and just like how smooth of a transition it is from color to color, when it comes to like the shoulder, for example, back, just pretty much any single part, even like the clothes that they're wearing, the folds on them. It's such a smooth transition from tone to tone. And as I mentioned, the skin tone as well, such great skill in blending colors together and picking the right colors. And it's a very difficult task. It's not as forgiving as digital. With digital, you're just Control-Z away from erasing a mistake. Whereas when it comes to painting, it's not the same. You really have to know what you're doing. Color mixing isn't as forgiving. You do have to really have a lot of experience with mixing colors in order to be able to work faster, instead of spending time trying to get the right color. A lot of these painters were so good at it, have been doing it for such a long time, that they could instantly mix the color to get the right tone specifically for a certain shadow. But just really beautiful work. The face expressions are also great. And just like the drama in the scene is also fantastic. Oh, this has been moving around. Let me just put it back in place. There you go. So I'm going to be continuing on. This is where I left off, actually. I started this a while ago. And I started out with Plato, and I was just going to work my way all the way from left to right. So I'm going to continue working on it today. This has been a while. I haven't really painted digitally like this in some time now, so I'm going to need to warm up. Got to warm up. And a lot of this is going to be getting more familiar with brushes for this technique. Unlike the work that you guys have seen, when it comes to coloring, it's flat drawing. It's flat coloring. Whereas here, there's like so much variation. That it's going to take me some time And the technique is very different. It's kind of going to push me to explore the options here. There's something called a watery brush, and it's absolutely not what I need right now. Maybe wet brush? Nope. I don't think it's a watercolor brush either. I'm gonna try oil paint brush, but I don't think... There's thick oil paint. Ooh, maybe this is it. Just gonna have to play with that. And I think this really helps improve hand-eye coordination. It helps improve your attention to detail, especially. Like, that's the number one thing. That's really what I'm aiming to gain from this approach. It's to continuously challenge my ability. This is one of the best ways to go about it. And also just being able to study this amazing painting. This is probably going to take me some time because I don't want it to be close. I want it to be as exact as possible. So as I shape out everything in this drawing, and I kind of went about just like, you know, creating general shapes, as you could see, like not really spending too much time or any detail at the moment, but just placeholders, something I talk about very frequently, in order to be able to just go back and start putting in more detail. There's just like tiny little things that make a difference. The droplet tool is the best friend in this process. I'm constantly going to be using it. And I'm already noticing some mistakes here and there from my original work. But even using the droplet tool, I'm still not going to get like the accurate colors because it's pixelated. So whenever I'm using the droplet tool and I'm like trying to get a sample of a certain section, there's no guarantee that that section is going to be the right pigment. You know, like I'm just clicking on a pixel, but the pixel right next to that pixel might have a different color or a different tone. So you can't really fully rely on the droplet tool. It's just handy. You just kind of have to understand what color you're seeing. It may look brown, but it's actually red, you know, or like a shade of red mixed in with some other shade. So it really helps with a lot of things, not just hand-eye coordination, but also color, understanding color. This is very challenging, but leave your comments, guys. Let me know if you want to see more of this, you know, me progressing further and further in this painting, or would you guys rather see more work from imagination? Because at the moment I am leaning more towards that. There's more stuff that I'd like to start developing, but I am enjoying this as well. Speaking of, actually, you know, of being sentenced to death, what's going on in Iran is disgusting. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. There's a bunch of people who are protesting the death of a young girl because of like the hijab thing. Like she didn't want to wear one, and because of that, she ended up being tortured and killed. And now they're sentencing like 15,000 protesters to the death penalty for creating a ruckus. I mean, if that's not something to really start pushing for more protests and take over this tyrannical, insane government, I don't know what is. You know, when you were being sentenced to death for protesting, it's absolutely insane. It's craziness. And again, it's on the grounds, like all of that, right? It's on the grounds of religious beliefs. So basically they're saying you should be following morality, and if you're not, we're going to kill you. Like, it is morally right for you to wear these hijabs, but if you don't, we're going to murder you. That doesn't make any sense. It's complete contradiction towards moral values that you're enforcing on others. So you're going to enforce people to act right while you threaten murder. That's tyranny. That's nothing more. That's not about morality at all whatsoever. That's just saying I want things done the way I want them to be done, and using religion as a way to do it. It's just a bunch of outdated old men who are scared, who can't control their very basic behaviors and instincts, and they're forcing other people to accommodate that. You know, there's these women who are just like sick of it. They're like, hey, I just want to be able to live and breathe and just do whatever. You know, like to be a human being. I'm not here to just serve your ineptitude, basically. They're like incapable of controlling themselves. They're incapable of controlling their horniness, or desires or whatever. So they're gonna sense other people to live in like this fear, basically, for their own ignorance. That's ridiculous. I don't agree with that at all whatsoever. And I totally agree with the women there. They should be protesting that. Like, you have a better education system. Learn how to control yourself. Stop torturing people because of that. It's absolutely insane behavior. And I do agree with sanctions. Like, they should be sanctioned. I don't care what people say about it. That place should be sanctioned for it. The people who are being tyrannical, who are abusing their political power, should see things get worse for themselves because of that. Abusing citizens, abusing people, killing them for their own ego trips. It's absolutely crazy. And more people should continue to protest and eventually overthrow the government there. Because that is not the type of place that you should be living in. Where anything that you say against tyranny or against corruption and abuse and fear-mongering or whatever is going to lead you to death. That's being held captive. That's being in a prison, basically. In a prison that's continuing to exploit you. And this is, my theory is that this is just conservatives working together all around to make sure that it becomes more and more difficult for democracy to thrive. Democracy thriving means less exploitation and less money for them. So this is every country all around the world who has like these quote unquote, what they like to call conservative, but I call fascist, because it's not. It has nothing to do with morality. They're absolutely the opposite of morality. Their actions and values are the complete opposite and are contradictory. So they're just straight up fascist people all over the world who don't want to see their power influence loosen. So they're working together to create these problems. You got Russia creating wars for the same purpose. You got people in Iran, their government, that's creating all this. Basically, again, murdering people for power and status. You got people here who are trying to enable white supremacists and trying to turn the country into a fascist country with book banning. Trying to create price gouging and then voting against it while saying that it has to do with inflation. Creating an oligarchy here where it's just like the top 10%, if even, are just basically controlling everything around, and everybody's subjected to their insane behavior. Telling women that they can't control their bodies either. I mean, it's a different form, right? It's the same thing that's happening in Iran that's happening here. They're saying, oh, you don't have the right to control your own body and decide whether you should abort a baby that potentially could be coming from a rapist or an uncle or a father. Like when we have cases of incest and all that other insane scenarios, they're saying, no, you don't get to decide that. And there's no exception to it. Some states are saying no exception. So they're just trying to create as much problems as possible because they're being challenged and their position of power is being taken away more and more. And they're going to continue to create these problems. And I think people really do have to start protesting here as much as possible. I'm not talking about once and expecting that to really change anything. I'm talking about every day having rotating groups of protesters, so that way we could keep up the momentum. You could have Group A protesting, and then they go home. Group B starts, then Group C, and so on and so forth until it comes back to Group A again to let Group B or C recuperate and do whatever else. And it has to go on for weeks and months until it becomes a problem, until basically you could shut down the economy until they start complying with these demands coming from the people. Because there's a very good chance that these wings, right, left, whatever, are working together for the same reason as I mentioned before. They don't want to see their power crumble. They don't want to see their legacy, quote unquote, their fascist, sociopathic behaviors that have created their legacy crumble. So they're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to lie. They're going to gaslight the public. They're going to try to shift the focus onto something else. They're going to make it now they're trying to make it a sensationalist thing of black person versus black person, Herschel Walker versus what was the other guy's name? Warren. It's going to be this thing now, which black person is going to prevail in this scenario, the good or the bad, the one in the red or the blue. It's just going to turn into this pay-per-view scenario that they're using to distract people from the fact that, hey, the economy is total shit. Prices are high. They're not going down despite all these claims coming from even the right, or the left rather, that, things are looking up and they're getting better and so on and so forth. No, the food prices, gas prices, they're still going up. Of course, that's having to do more with the right than the left, but I don't see the left doing much about it. In fact, we're going to start seeing a lot of dodgy behavior coming from the House of Representatives. I guarantee you, once they're going to start, they're going to have, or they're going to take over the House, they're going to start doing things that Democrats could have done to pass laws, to pass regulations, to get things going. They're going to figure out how to do it, and it's going to make you question, well, why didn't the left do that when they were controlling the House? Why didn't they take this similar action? I'm almost 100% positive this is how it's all going to go down. They're going to start turning into that Herschel Walker and Warren into a pay-per-view, sort of political pay-per-view. Who's going to do it? Who's going to win? It's up to the people to create change. You can't depend on these people who are riding basically our taxes and riding the wave of power and influence to actually care and change our dependency on them. They're not going to do that. They're going to continue to create problems and keep people glued to this political fiasco, and constantly dangling the carrot, basically being oh, we're almost there. No, that's not going to happen. And just continuously bring people up and then bring them down. That's just their tactic. And until people actually start banding together for change and start demanding it the way that they're doing it in Iran. I mean, look at that. They're at a point where the government is trying to issue executions, which isn't going to happen here. We're not living in that kind of third world scenario. It's absolutely insane. But this is the kind of disruption that needs to happen, for people to actually see change, for people to start demanding jobs that have progressive work environments that aren't basically making people feel like they're walking on eggshells all the time and they're about to lose their job to somebody else, or not even have to ask for raises anymore because they're too scared for that. That's the position that people are in. Everybody's like holding on to their jobs as if though they're not going to have one the next day. And we got to flip that script. As we saw, those people don't care about you, and they're going to make it more and more difficult while collecting record-breaking profits. And I think people really have to get sick of that, especially the new generation. They have to get sick of that same old story. 50s, 60s. I'm going to say 60s because 50s was like this booming period where people after the war came back and started, prospering, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to like bring about war for that reason because it's profitable and it's their way of resetting things. But we can't allow that. Can't have this continuous cycle of stupid behavior and have it justified each time because they're going to keep doing it. So we have to change the script. We have to do something different. And that's the way we go about that. You got to do it in each campus. You got to do it in each state, each city. People have to start doing that collectively. One place isn't enough. It has to really reverberate through. I don't know. I'm appalled at that. It's 2022, slowly creeping in on 2030, and instead of things progressing towards like more of understanding, unifying understanding, an understanding of humanity rather than nationality, rather than all these ego trips, a multicultural nation where people really appreciate each other and have a harmonious living instead of this like nationalistic fascist Nazi garbage that's manifesting more and more. And people who don't have those kind of values really need to step it up. People who have money, people who have influence, like all these celebrities and all that other stuff, they're making money from people who appreciate that kind of stuff. And they're being envied by fascists and basically all those who have like those sociopathic values and behaviors. So they have to start stepping up and creating better opportunities for people who are giving them these opportunities, who are giving them this freedom that they have. And it has to be coupled with the people standing up as well. It can't be just one or the other. It has to be both, and it has to be persistent. And I think they're already taking action. Like they're trying to impeach a Democrat in the House. The Republicans are trying to do that, which is like, again, why didn't Democrats do that when they were facing all this pushback in the middle of the pandemic for them to pass regulations and laws that would have helped the people? Why didn't they start trying to impeach and push for those people to get booted? They don't do enough. They don't do any of that stuff. They take taxes and they write good memes and messages about what should be done, but not do anything about it. And they're like, oh, this is how things are right now. This is what they're doing. And they're complaining about this when they did that. And that's great. Like, informing us about that is great. But you're in a position as a politician to start doing something about it. And that's why you're there. To defend our interests by actually doing something about it, aside from just educating the public. That's important, but action, is just as important as well. It's very frustrating. And this is more of a problem for the younger generation, that people who are in college who are trying to create a future for themselves, seeing this being the future, where it's going to be even more fascist and crazy and sociopathic, where people's lives don't matter at all whatsoever. The only thing that matters is capital. Like, it's such an insane environment. That's why I think it's important for the young generation to get involved and start doing things, because they're in a position to have the freedom to do it. They're still in school. They don't have like that crushing debt or all those bills yet, or they're not in those they're not that deep in their debt yet. And they have that freedom to actually go out there and start protesting. But it's everybody's responsibility. It's not just the younger generation. I think it's everybody's responsibility to make sure that things don't get crazy, even more and more crazy. We have to be vigilant about that. And we have to start recognizing that politicians are going to do bare minimum for our interests. They want to maintain their hold over the people. But yeah, that stuff that's going on in Iran, it's insane. Like, how is that different than concentration camps? Like, when people were just thrown in concentration camps and executed. Why is that okay? Why is this that's going on okay? If you're going to be against Nazis, if you're going to think that that was such a wrong time, and what they were doing was absolutely insane, how is that different from this sort of behavior? It's exactly the same. It's absolute political corruption. And I think it's important for people to talk about that with each other, rather than shying away from it, rather than finding it to be too heavy. We have to embrace that and talk about it and be excited about creating change. Despite all this crazy behavior and things starting to look grim, being excited to know that here's an opportunity to really turn things around, to have a cause to band together, talk about solutions, talk about ways to improve things, talk about actions, and through that I think a lot of people discover more about themselves, about what's really important. It's a great journey, and I don't think that people should be discouraged or fall for it, because there's absolutely going to be people who are incredibly lazy, don't care, who are defeatists, or who like to fearmonger. They kind of get off on that. They like to talk people out of things by making things seem like they're doom and gloom and impossible and all that other stuff, because in some ways that absolves them of having to take any responsibility, so it's important to stay away from that and to usher in change, to discuss more and more ways to improve things, and just stay away from people who are defeatists and who whine about how things aren't going to change and how it's all going to be the same and blah, 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 blah. Can't tell you how many times I've come across that, where you get these like whiny characters that just don't care about anything other than their own misery, or not having to change and start actually doing something about things. It's a lot easier to just be like, well, that's how things are, and this is how things will be, and it's because people are like that. It's just a bunch of excuses to say I don't want to do anything about it, or I don't actually believe in change, and I don't really want anything to change. I like it how it is. So yeah, I suggest not to interact with people like that. And focus on creating change. Focus on coming up with ideas and theories and approaches and creating protests, banding together for a cause, for a better future. I think that's more interesting. That's more progressive, and I also think it's fun. It's a fun approach. Yeah, it's been so long that I've done this that I really do forget what the process calls for. And how much needs to be put in. It is slowly approaching, ladies and gents, as much as I am enjoying this, and I want to keep going, to be honest. I want to get further and further along in this painting. But it is approaching for that time where I have to end the stream for the night. I will be back, absolutely, so don't worry. I will be back tomorrow, same time and place, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for figure drawing basics. But at 9 p.m. I'm going to be doing coloring comics, which is going to be me working on John Buscema's comics, another project of mine that I absolutely love doing, enjoy very much. That's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Twitch. But as I mentioned earlier, if you guys enjoy this and you want to see more of me working on this painting, of me doing this paint work, leave a comment. Talk about that. See, I'm still trying to debate on where I should go next. but I'm happy to revisit this. I'm going to say I started this back in, I'm going to say 2000 and, 2015? Was it 2015? I don't remember. 6 years ago. Or 7 years ago. It's been a while. Let's just say that. Kind of put these paintings on pause. But yeah, everybody stay vigilant, stay focused, stay creative. Don't give in to all this idiotic, crazy behavior. You are much smarter than that. And band together, y'all. Start figuring out ways to make a big difference, you know. Form some interesting connections and alliances. Because I don't honestly, I'm still going to vote regardless how I feel about this. I'm always gonna vote, but I'm not gonna have that be the reason why. I'm not gonna encourage people to do things as individuals, because I don't have that much faith in politicians. I don't believe that they will do their best to make our lives any better. It's up to us as people to do that. I think the faster people recognize that, the faster we're going to see some really good results. And something I mention very frequently, one of the biggest changes that we can create that's going to benefit all of us is by reducing the amount of hours and demanding livable wages. Reducing the amount of hours we work and demanding livable wages. If people are getting paid more, if people have more time for themselves, the overall societal sort of ethos is going to be at a much happier place. People will take care of their families more because they're going to have more time for themselves and time to enjoy their family life. They're going to take care of themselves as well. They're not going to be as frustrated and angry because they're just going day in and out, going to work and coming back with nothing to show for it. You know, barely any money, barely any time to enjoy themselves. It reverberates. It absolutely causes this discontent, this anger, bad choices, crime, drug and alcohol abuse, all of that. It all stems from basically that sort of environment, that sort of reality, that a lot of people are just stuck going in circles. And, you know, we might have only one chance to experience life, and that's not the way we wanted to go, is it? Like, is that the way you want your entire life to be going forward? Absolutely not. Imagine most of you don't. So we got to start taking action as people. We got to start coming up with solutions and start pushing back and creating problems from all these exploiters, for all these like fascist Nazi supporters and these corporate fascist companies. We got to start doing stuff about that. So stay vigilant, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow for more Art Lounge Alley. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.